When Oprah Winfrey raised her hand and stopped mid-sentence, Jimmy Fallon's face told the entire story. His mouth opened slightly. His eyes widened. The cards he was holding dropped an inch. And in that split second, everyone in Studio 6B knew something extraordinary was happening. The Tonight Show had seen thousands of interviews, countless celebrities, endless laughter. But nobody, absolutely nobody, had ever seen this. The studio lights felt warmer suddenly. The audience, usually buzzing with energy, fell into a silence so complete you could hear the cameras adjusting their focus. Oprah leaned forward in her chair, her cream blazer catching the light, and her voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "Jimmy, stop. Just stop for a moment." Jimmy Fallon froze. Not the comedic freeze he does for laughs. Not the exaggerated pause that gets audience applause. This was real. His hands, usually animated and constantly moving, rested flat on his desk. He wasn't performing anymore. He was listening. But how did we get here? How did a routine celebrity interview on The Tonight Show turn into a moment that would be replayed millions of times, analyzed by media outlets worldwide, and remembered as one of the most powerful exchanges in late-night television history? To understand this moment, we need to go back 48 hours earlier, to the email that landed in the Tonight Show production office at exactly 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon. The subject line read, "Oprah availability. Thursday taping. Standard stuff." Oprah was promoting her latest book Club Selection, a memoir about resilience and second chances. The producers immediately confirmed. Oprah Winfrey on The Tonight Show was always ratings gold. The interview was scheduled for the second segment, right after the opening monologue. 12 minutes allotted. Questions prepared. Topics approved. Jimmy reviewed the prep notes that Wednesday night in his dressing room. He always did his homework. That's what separated him from flashier hosts, what made guests feel safe, what built the trust that led to genuine moments on camera. The notes mentioned Oprah's book Club Pick, her recent documentary project, and a feel-good story about her school in South Africa. But there was one more item, buried at the bottom of page 3. Personal note: Oprah may reference recent family matter. Tread carefully if raised. Jimmy circled it with his blue pen. Made a mental note. Moved on to reviewing jokes for the monologue. Thursday arrived with its usual controlled chaos. Hair and makeup at 4 p.m. Band rehearsal at 5 p.m. Audience warm-up at 5:45 p.m. By 6:15 p.m., Studio 6B was packed with 240 people, all buzzing with anticipation. Oprah Winfrey was in the building. The opening monologue went flawlessly. Jimmy hit every beat, every punchline. The audience roared. The Roots provided perfect musical punctuation. Everything was clockwork. Everything was professional. Everything was exactly as it should be. "And when we come back," Jimmy announced with that signature grin, "the one and only Oprah Winfrey." The audience erupted. The cameras pulled back for the commercial break. Stage managers moved into position. Oprah emerged from backstage wearing that cream blazer that would later appear in every screenshot, every thumbnail, every news article. She moved with the grace of someone who'd done this 10,000 times. She hugged Jimmy. She waved to the audience. She sat in the guest chair as naturally as if she owned it. The interview began exactly as planned. Book recommendations. Documentary footage. Laughter about celebrity encounters. Jimmy was in his element, balancing genuine curiosity with comedic timing. Oprah responded with warmth and wisdom. 7 minutes in, they were right on schedule. Then Jimmy asked the question that changed everything. "You've spent your entire career," he said, reading from his cards but maintaining eye contact, "telling other people's stories, giving voice to those who felt unheard. But what about your story? What about the things you've never shared?" It was meant to be a transition. A segue into discussing personal memoir writing. A softball question to set up a heartfelt answer before the commercial break. Oprah's smile didn't fade, but something shifted in her eyes. She glanced down at her hands. Then back up at Jimmy. And in that moment, she made a decision. "Can I tell you something, Jimmy?" Her voice was quieter now. Not the television voice. The real voice. "Something I've never said publicly?" Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most powerful part of this story is still ahead. Jimmy nodded slowly. His producer, watching from the control room, leaned closer to the monitors. The Roots, who'd been ready to play into the next segment, held their instruments still. The audience sensed the shift before their conscious minds could name it. The air itself felt different. Oprah took a breath. 2 weeks ago, I got a call. Middle of the night. My phone rang with that sound that makes your heart drop before you're even fully awake. She paused. Jimmy didn't interrupt. It was my brother. My younger brother. The one nobody knows about because we've kept him private, away from the spotlight, away from all of this. She gestured vaguely at the studio, the cameras, the audience. He called to tell me he was sick. Really sick. The silence in Studio 6B was now absolute. 240 people holding their breath. Cancer. Oprah continued, her voice steady but her eyes beginning to shimmer. Stage 4. The doctors gave him 3 months. Maybe 6 if the treatment works. She stopped. Looked directly at Jimmy. He's 52 years old. He has 3 kids. He's never asked me for anything. Never leveraged our connection. Never wanted the spotlight. And now... She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Jimmy's cards fell from his hands onto the desk with a soft thud that the microphones caught. His professional mask, the one he wore every single night, the one that made him America's favorite late-night host, cracked completely. His eyes filled with tears. And that's when Oprah raised her hand. But nobody in that studio, and nobody watching at home, could have predicted what happened next. Jimmy, stop, Oprah said, her hands still raised. Not commanding. Gentle. I need to tell you why I'm sharing this. Why I'm saying this here, now, on your show. Jimmy managed a nod. He reached for the tissue box that stage managers kept hidden beside his desk. Found it wasn't there. A producer scrambled from off-camera to deliver one. The cameras kept rolling. Nobody called cut. Last night, Oprah said, leaning forward now, closing the physical distance between them. I was in my hotel room, trying to prepare for this interview. Reading notes. Thinking about talking points. And I couldn't focus. All I could think about was my brother. About time. About the moments we waste on performance, on presentation, on keeping up appearances. She paused. Jimmy was completely still. And I thought about you, Jimmy. About this show. About how you've built something here that's different. You're not just doing comedy. You're not just doing interviews. You're creating moments where people can be human. Where celebrities can cry. Where musicians can be vulnerable. Where it's okay to not be okay. Her voice cracked slightly on the last word. So I decided, she continued, her eyes now fully bright with tears, that I was going to come here tonight and tell the truth. Not my television truth. My real truth. Because if my brother has 3 months, if that's all we have, then I don't want to spend another second pretending that everything is perfect. That I have all the answers. That I'm somehow above pain. Jimmy reached across his desk. Oprah extended her hand. They held hands across the space that separated host from guest, that separated the desk from the chair, that separated performance from reality. And they just breathed together for a moment. The audience didn't applaud. This wasn't an applause moment. Some people were crying. Others sat perfectly still, witnesses to something they'd never expected to see. Jimmy spoke finally, his voice rough. What's his name? Michael, Oprah said, smiling through tears. His name is Michael. And he's the kindest man I know. Then Jimmy did something that shattered every protocol, every rule, every expectation of how a late-night show operates. He stood up. Walked around his desk. Pulled the guest chair closer to his own seat. And sat down next to Oprah, not across from her. The cameras scrambled to adjust. The director in the control room made quick decisions about angles. But nobody stopped it. Nobody called cut. Because everyone recognized what they were witnessing. Television transforming into something more than television. Performance transforming into connection. "Tell me about him," Jimmy said simply, sitting beside Oprah now, no desk between them, no cards, no structure. Just two people talking. "Tell me about Michael." And Oprah did. For the next 6 minutes, she told stories about her brother. About childhood memories. About phone calls and holidays. About his laugh and his stubbornness, and his refusal to let cancer define his final chapter. She talked about his kids, about their strength, about how they were handling their father's diagnosis with more grace than she could manage. Jimmy listened. Really listened. The kind of listening that requires complete presence. He asked questions not from cards but from genuine curiosity. When Oprah laughed at a memory, he laughed with her. When she cried, he didn't try to fix it or transition away. He just sat with her in it. Behind the scenes, Fallon made a decision that defied every producer's expectation. He signaled to the control room, "Extend the segment. Cancel the commercial break. Let this continue." The producers panicked silently in the control room. The schedule was blown. The next guest was waiting. Sponsors were expecting their ad time. But Jimmy's signal was clear, this mattered more. So the cameras kept rolling. The audience remained transfixed. And for 11 uninterrupted minutes, The Tonight Show became something nobody had planned for. A space for grief, for love, for the messy reality of being human. Near the end, Oprah reached into her blazer pocket and pulled out a small object. A brass compass, old and worn. "Michael gave me this," she said, holding it up for Jimmy and the cameras to see. "When I left home at 19 to pursue broadcasting. He was just a kid, maybe 10 years old. He saved up his allowance and bought this at a flea market." She turned it over in her hands. "It doesn't even work anymore. The needle spins randomly. But he told me it didn't matter because I already knew which direction I was going. He believed in me before I believed in myself." Jimmy looked at the compass. "Can I see it?" Oprah handed it to him. He held it carefully, reverently, understanding this wasn't just an object. It was a symbol. A connection. A physical manifestation of love that transcended time and illness and fear. "I'm going to be honest with you, Oprah," Jimmy said, still holding the compass. "I don't know what to say. I don't have wisdom here. I don't have answers." His voice was thick with emotion. "But I'm so grateful you trusted me with this. That you trusted us." He gestured to the audience. "With Michael's story." Oprah nodded. "That's why I did it. Because trust is rare. And time is precious. And if my brother's illness has taught me anything, it's that we waste too much of both." She took the compass back from Jimmy. Held it close to her heart. "I'm going to call him after this. Tell him I talked about him on The Tonight Show. He'll probably be embarrassed." She laughed through tears. "He'll say I shouldn't have made it public. But I need him to know that his story matters. That he matters. That he's not just my brother in private, he's my hero in public. But this is the moment no one in the studio and no one watching at home ever saw coming." Jimmy reached behind his desk and pulled out his notebook. The one he always kept there, filled with joke ideas and sketch concepts and random thoughts. He flipped to a blank page. Wrote something. Tore it out. Folded it carefully. "Give this to Michael," he said, handing the folded paper to Oprah. "Don't read it first. It's for him." Oprah took the paper. Held it as carefully as she'd held the compass. "What does it say?" "He'll know," Jimmy said simply. "It's between him and me." Later, after the show, after the audience had filed out still processing what they'd witnessed, a producer asked Jimmy what he'd written. He smiled but didn't answer. Some things, he indicated, needed to remain private. Some gestures didn't need explanation. But Michael, when he received that folded note, knew. He knew that Jimmy had written words of recognition, of validation, of one human acknowledging another's courage. And he kept that note beside his hospital bed, along with his sister's compass, during every treatment, every difficult night, every moment when hope felt distant. The segment ended not with applause but with quiet gratitude. Oprah hugged Jimmy again, longer this time. The cameras slowly pulled back. The Roots began to play softly, not their usual energetic transition but something gentle and contemplative. The audience rose to their feet, not cheering, but standing in respect for what they'd witnessed. Share and subscribe. Make sure this story is never forgotten. The next day, the segment went viral. But not in the usual way. There were no clickbait headlines. No sensationalism. Instead, people shared it with simple messages. Watch this. This matters. This is real. Jimmy Fallon never revealed what he wrote on that note. Oprah never publicly shared Michael's response. But in the months that followed, something shifted in how The Tonight Show operated. There was more space for silence. More room for tears. More permission to be human. Michael lived longer than 3 months. Longer than 6. And when he finally passed, surrounded by family, that folded note from Jimmy Fallon was in his pocket. The compass was in his hand. Some moments on television change entertainment. This moment changed lives. Because sometimes, the bravest thing a host can do is stop hosting. Stop performing. And just be present. That's Jimmy Fallon's real legacy. Not the laughs. Not the viral games. But the moment he chose connection over comedy. The night he proved that television, at its best, isn't about the show. It's about the humanity we're brave enough to share.